Good evening, or it's good evening here. This is AAA Wargaming, and here's not quite a battle. It isn't a battle royal. This is going to be the review of the English Championships. I'm also going to look towards the two options I'm playing with to ahead of the Masters Open on the back of this. Won't be making vast changes to this, but I've been forced to actually because of the points changes under the yearly review and points changes rather than anything else. So. Right, let's get on with it. So this is the TEC list review that I took. Just a reminder of the list. I took a Druid Dragon, Wizard Master Druidism with a Binding Scroll and Talisman of the Void. Talisman of the Void is so that I can couple it with the Briar Maiden Champion to get Channel 3 so that I get 3 dice, and effectively with the Wizard Master's +1 to cast, I throw that at Oaken Throne. Avatar of Nature General in his pants. Very hard pants, but still pants. Chieftain Battle Standard Bearer with 2 Aether Icons, Hunter's Honor with Blade Dancer Kindred, 23 Dryads with Champion, 8 Dryads Scoring Champion, 8 Dryads Champion, 2 units of Heath Hunters, just units of 5 with the bows. These are Vanguarding and light cavalry ones. Nardwar Huntsman with Flaming Standard and Shields and Sylvan Lance. So very tough on the punchy on the charge, but not very strong. Then my 13 Blade Dancers with a Aether Icon just to give them that MR4 with the Champion and Standard Bearer. And then 9 Sentinels with no upgrades and 5 Maidens and a Champion. Basically, the Briar Maidens, for those who don't know, can take Master of Earth, which is shooting the magic missile spell from Druidism. So also they can heal and Break the Spirit, which is the Dangerous Terrain one from Shamanism, Truth of Time, so minus or plus, so minimize or maximize charge range, and the Hereditary, which is Forest Embrace on us, so the wood around a unit. I was pretty happy with the list. I trialed it a few times, but I was happy originally with the Dragon, Prince, and then the Tree Father Ancient, which I've taken a frame. I really like that list because it just kept it quite central. But this is something I wanted to try that was a bit different to my style. So going through, Druid and the Dragon, what I've done is each game, some small thoughts on it and then a scoring. So the big thing about the Dragon was it increased the numbers of Blade Dancers. It got put down to the Beast being a champion, and it managed to bring it back up. The only thing I did find was I hit it for most of the game and I couldn't push forward as I wanted to just because of the double catapult and the amount of shooting and magic he had, especially with the double snipes. But overall, it did its healing very well, and it kept the Blade Dancers in and saved me a lot of points that I was about to lose there. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. In game 2, it did the same with the Blade Dancers. So the Blade Dancers smashed through being through a raiding party, but they were getting shot at quite a lot and magicked off. So what the Dragon did was manage to get into a position where I had to get into that position to build up the Blade Dance again, but that meant I would have been charged by a Beast Master on a Manticore, and it survived. Not only that, the Dragon put 2 wounds on the Manticore, but I didn't break it and write it down. So again, a 3 out of 5 there. In game 3, did the Immortals, so magic, and was very useful in magic, just keeping the Avatar alive. In game 4, the big thing here is it did everything right again, but it died to strength 4 shooting. Otherwise, this would have been a strong 4 out of 5 plus, and it's one of the big reasons that went really, really south very quickly. And then game 5, badly placed due to War Machines. I just felt the shooting from the Dwarfs was too powerful, and I couldn't, but it did aid the Blade Dancers again in combat. So what I've learned here is it's not specifically the Dragon, but the Druid itself. So the Master Mage is key to the Blade Dancers. The only problem is if it's saving the Blade Dancers, it's not saving anything else. And I think I'll bring this on when I go to the Wild Huntsman. It's another unit that needs saving because it's in its pants res 3. So the magic, I always knew magic was key to this list, and it's one of the reasons I prefer the Tree Father Ancient, because of that 5-up ward. It's just that little bit more tough, it's stubborn, and it's also not a flying creature, which is it's an advantage having a flying creature because you move around further. So I still like the concept. The downside is if it gets into trouble, it's got to flee. because it's not going to stand there and shoot a hold. So that's where the Tree Father Ancient is a bit of an advantage. But it is a dragon, and one of my rules is I quite like my dragon model. I want to have a dragon in a game. I think more dragons are better, even though they're actually not that good to play sometimes. The avatar itself, I think the avatar went through periods of being really, really good and then would fail miserably. So I think in the first game, just took on the Chariot Star on its own and then held up a Shard Guardian. But then in the Dread Elves, died very quickly to spears. And then killed the Immortals and Disciple of Luga, blah, blah, blah. Did nothing amazing, but it did its job. Game 4, killed a Steam Tank. I felt really confident. I think this is something, actually, if I come up against an engine or another monster, especially if they're not, well, maybe a Kadim Titan with flaming, that may be a problematic to myself, but it goes through them very easily. And I still think it's that one thing that can scare the hell out of a cowboy. It's one of the few things in a Sylvanel's list. And yeah, so, but it then failed a discipline. So I need to, it's exceptionally good in combat. I think sometimes I need to be more confident with the war machines in the final game against the dwarves. Very good in combat, but lacks mobility and needs that BSB reroll. So I need to play them tighter together. So if you play a list like this, I think again it's the Blade Dancers and the Avatar and the Dragon all need to sort of be in that range just to sort of keep them going. But it's got a 12 out of 25 score. I think that's how I played it rather than the actual model. The Avatar is still exceptionally strong. So yeah. The Blade Dancer BSB, it's a model I quite like, and that's why I've got it. In game 1, it didn't really do anything because it got shot by catapults, so that's not really its fault. But in the second game, it was one of the few that stayed alive. So game 2 and 3, they stayed alive, which was important. I mean, game 3, it was just running around trying not to get Breath of Corruption off by the Lamb of Sea or Fireball or by anything else. Game 4, I finally played it right. Like with the Blade Dancers, they held the center really well and blocked Blade through, murdered the Knights of the Sun Griffin. And I would have put it with a bit more magic support again until the dragon died. I would have put it into the center, the big unit of halberds, and then probably on from there. But I think I just didn't want to take a risk at that point because I knew I sort of worked out I was roughly going to be 10-10 and I didn't want to take the risk. But otherwise, that was the one game where I played them well. So they could be. So something about this, they're good, but not in a bad position. So they're not that. They're too immobile at the same time. They rely on that magic, or maybe it's just me, or a wood to make them stubborn. There's so much that can hit them straight off. And the problem here is maybe if you want to rely on the 3+ Aegis dance, you need to take with the Hunter's Honor, I go down to strength 4 because I've got no way of buffing it. So maybe it's not the item that I want to use with that in mind. I want to have a look at the Hero's Heart item going forward. But otherwise, the 2 Aether Icons I still think is pretty key. I mean, I think the Blade Dancers would have died a lot quicker without it, without the BSB Chieftain. So with the points changes that I'll go on to later, I think is this. But otherwise, I still think it's a very solid character. I just need to improve its damage output so that it's just a bit more scary on that 3+ Aegis, because then I think I feel I would use it more and I can still have that anvil effect. Right, so the large dryads, they didn't have a good tournament. I think we've gone through this enough. They died to the Cataphracts. That was their fault. The Hydra and Manticore, that's probably my fault. Double Stomp, just not a good thing, especially when the Beastmaster maximizes everything. You need to remember that. Sorry, not Hydra, Kraken. But in the game 3, they showed what they actually are. They killed the Citadel Guard unit and the slaves, and then they died to the last unit. But they took an entire flank on and just went through it. So I still think they're a good unit. It's just me. And they did a lot of damage to the Imperial Guard. They rolled well. They were performing strong. It was only when the Avatar died that it kind of flummoxed a bit. But I think with their Leadership 8, they do kind of rely on that Leadership 9 buff from the Avatar. So, and also the reroll from the BSB, so I need to be mindful of that. I think the problem with this unit is when I like playing out wide, if I like using a dragon out wide, maybe a large unit is not what I want to be using. That's a thought there, just because the especially the new rules I have to go on to, you can't really fit all the characters I wanted through the Dragon and Tree Father Ancient. So maybe I've got to have a fiddle around with that just to get that Leadership 9 back in there, or I have to look at a different unit. But overall, immobile, they also don't hit hard enough. So I think if you want to take a large unit of Dryads, maybe you've got to accept they're going to be an anvil for a couple of turns, or you need to use some different magic. I think maybe Divination or Shamanists to look at that. Maybe a Rod of Battle as well. That's something now it's changed to 18 inches. So if you've got that sort of wizard bunker running behind, maybe a Rod of Battle is quite good just to get there. I'm not willing to spend a Dryad Matriarch points and then for the hatred and just put it on the front rank. I've done that a few times and it's never paid off for me. A 5+ Aegis with 3 wounds on a Res 4 model is just not very clever with all the cowboys running around. You just get taken, and with all the monstrous infantry with high or monstrous cavalry, you're just going to get taken off, I think. Or for me, I can't make it work. Maybe with the Clearing Spirit changes rules, but then I'm using a model, but then I'm not getting the hatred anyway. So I think if I'm running Divination or Shamanism to either get Strength 5 or just get rerolls to hits and stuff like that, or just make their Offensive 6, it starts changing stuff. So I think I need to really have a look at that if I want to use this unit again in the future. Small Dryads, these were amazing. They took the objective a couple of times, but when they held up the Shah Guardian as well, so having a champion in there, they're just very tough. That 5+ Aegis, sometimes it comes through and it's just very good. The only thing I would say is if you had a unit of 11 and a champion, you could hold up a character that also has 1 rank. So I'm thinking of Gargantula here, a Chimera that's not flying, any sort of greater demon, like there's possibilities here. So I think that's something that we haven't really thought about. So a unit of 11 Dryads maintains the ranks with a champion. It's only what, 165 plus 16, so 175, 181 points. But that is very role specific because they're not very mobile. You've got to get in the right position. So they're useful. So I personally just leave as units for 8. I think they're brilliant for scoring darts. So I think if I could have another big scoring unit apart from the Dryads, I'd probably try and take these in just 3 small units of 8. But that's not a case at the moment. So, but overall, I think they performed 15 out of 20. So I think they performed really well. Heath Hunters, great. Like the bows did really well for starting it. Whether it was the catapult or bolt throwers, I think just their potential to spike is really good against war machines. As chaff, they're quite good, but they are quite expensive at 200 points of chaff. So if I lose both units very quickly, I'm sort of noticing this. That's 400 points gone straight off the bat, and that's quite a lot actually. So maybe it's just worth it if I just had a bigger unit and just use it as a mobile gun platform, especially with Druidism and the changes of rules now. A Summer's Growth will bring them back quite effectively, and with 18-inch move, they can move out of danger pretty sharpish. So maybe there's something there. But it's the one problem against magic missiles and stuff like that. They are on short range shooting. When there's enough of it, they just go down. The res 3 5+ save. It's not a lot. So it's one of those things that I still think they're a very good unit and I like them, but maybe not in 5s anymore, or maybe not 2 of them as chaff. I just think I'm wasting points at that point. But otherwise, they had a very good tournament. So Wild Huntsman. I still don't know. I thought I'd managed it a bit when I was playing Tommy Tuckers and a few others and the Dwarves. I thought I was starting to get hold of them, but I just made too many mistakes this tournament. And when you push for time and you're not quite measuring everything and you're just like, yeah, this should work, and they get in range of being shot, or it's just so big a footprint as well. They're not very mobile. They've got frenzy. So let's look at it like they failed charging the game 1 against some Scarabs. Didn't really do anything after that. They're shot easily game 2, and then are poorly placed, so that was my problem. Game 3 they came through, they killed a giant and they went through on a chariot, so they can do what they need to do, but that was 1 out of 5. Other than that, they died to shooting in games 4 and 5, I mean, game 4 they died, all 9 of them in one round. It was a combination of magic and shooting, I think, and the crossbowmen spiked. I mean, the crossbowmen managed in that game to account for my Wild Huntsman and my Dragon Lord or Dragon Mage. So yeah, but overall, I think they've got massive threat, and it's psychological threat more than anything else. But they are so easily chaffed, and they're just too vulnerable to magic and shooting. It's just not a, and they're too easily chaffed because they're not flying. So I don't think they're a strong element of the army. If anything, they are the weakest element of the army and the most underperforming. Blade Dancers, I said most of it into there. That I think they're a great unit, but I think I need to be more aggressive with them. So maybe a Banner of Relentless Company, or I use the wood more further up, and I just trust on that 3+ Aegis. I think the changes to the BSB in taking a Hero's Heart instead of the Hunter's Honor could do that, but they do rely on magical support. But with changes to Summer's Growth now and the extended range of what's it called, Healing Waters, actually they don't need to be that close to the general anymore, to the dragon, or to whichever mage I end up using, whether it's Treefather Ancient or anything, so they can play a little bit further away. What they are important about is playing close to the avatar, because I think that 12 inches in combat, even if if they're not in, they can use the avatar for a bit of protection, but the avatar still needs that re-roll to keep them alive. So I think in game 4, when they destroyed the Knights and Sun Griffin and stopped the breakthrough, I think that was their top moment. But other than that, I just need to be more mindful of how to protect them. And I think one of the ways of doing it is actually accept that Stone Skin doesn't need to be in the avatar in the short term. It needs to go on the Blade Dancers to get through that magic and be more aggressive with them. And just take the risk early game and force the opponent back, because they are an extremely tough unit, especially if I've got, for an anvil, if I get them in with a forest with the 3+ Aegis, that's solid. Then add something else on like Stone Skin, and they just start becoming really, really quite lethal, because they just will not die. And then I can countercharge with some other stuff. But I need to work out what those countercharges are, how I'm going to do it, because they won't be the Dryads. It may not be the Avatar, because he's too slow anyway, and he may be fixed ahead of them. So maybe it's a Dragon. I don't know. I just need to have a look at that. But overall, I think I played badly with them. That's the worst I've played with them for a while, actually. But I wasn't aggressive enough, and I need to be. But I still think MR4 or MR3 at the very least, is a must-have with the new replica rules with Fireball. When you think about it, if 2 Fireballs go off, you're going to have 2 automatic strength 5 hits, which are probably going to kill 2 Blade Dancers. You then might have 2 or 3 on each one, so you could have anything between 6 and 8 dead in one round of magic, and that's even before they've started shooting at them. So by that point you could, and you've got to remember, there's no Summer Growth bringing back that unit once they're down to just the BSB, so it's still such a powerful unit, but at the same time they're going to attract a lot of attention. You've just got to accept that. So it's a combination of how do you sidetrack an opponent to not hit them, and Wild Huntsman can't do that, but if the opponent gets the opportunity, they will start whittling away at them, and then they'll just start making sure you don't get Summer's Growth off. So I think you've got to find a way of mitigating that quite early on, or provide another better threat. But Wild Huntsmen are not the answer, because they will be a threat for 1 turn, and that's it. And then you've still got 5 turns to work out how to keep them alive. Yeah, actually, I've just thought of it. The best way of keeping Blade Dancers alive is get them in combat. So maybe that bottom point there I've got on the overall Banner Relentless Company. Get them straight up in the opponent's face and use it as a pivot. Yeah, I'd put that down, but I haven't really thought about it in greater detail. But maybe that is the answer, because once they're there and then a pivot, you could even think about it. Turn 1, they move around a bit, but actually what you're doing is moving your forest or a forest or something up into the opponent's half. Your second turn, then you break the Banner Relentless Company and move into it, just straight off. You do something where they don't want it, and they have a choice of either charging you or getting charged, which is not great for them. You buff that unit to death with magic so that it will not break. and you set up the world of counter charges, and you just make sure that you've taken and you've thought about this. You've got a plan for it. It might be turn 3, because the key bit is you can't let chaff get in the way of this if you're doing this. So it's another way of actually, instead of spending a ton of points on sacred seeds, shapeshifters, and all that jazz, you're doing it with the Valor and Relentless Company. But then you've got to work out what your counter charges are. But that shouldn't be too bad with an avatar and stuff like that. So as long as you can get the shooting out of the way. Sylvan Sentinels, they're an okay tournament. They're there. There's lots of monsters still going to run around, and I know the points have gone up for a lot of stuff, and there's a lot more war machines going on. But I still don't think that's going to change. There isn't the time. I'm thinking mainly Masters Open in the short term. Long term, I think maybe these will get phased out a bit more for Briar Maidens. Yes, they'll be shooting more often, but Briar Maidens are just that much tougher and will retain their points better. And especially if you've got like Blazing Glories or big monsters, Briar Maidens are actually much better at just circling them and just plinking off the poison wounds until they're ready to either take a stand and shoot in a charge, or charge themselves and use their poison. So I think there's elements there that you need to have a think about. The one thing I did lack with them was Scout. I know I didn't, but it's something that the ability to have a turn 1, turn 2, be on a flank and just shoot, rather than just I pit them at the back somewhere and they're either out of position or they're just not in a great place. So I think having Scout on them it enhances their capability just to go and choose their target turn 1 and 2 and make best use of that. And it also adds another element where the opponent has to think about what you're doing. So yeah, I think an okay tournament, and I still think they're worthy of it, but I think I can see with the points changes these being phased out for Briar Maidens, quite frankly, because they also offer a minor combat threat, unlike these people. Right, Briar Maidens champion. These probably had the best tournament out of any of my models, if I'm honest. Yeah, they did fairly little first game, but after that, and game 5, but the 3 in the middle, they did fantastic. In terms of game 2, they managed to survive. Games 3 and 4, killing the war machines, getting around the flank, and magic with the altar. So that Master of Earth actually is far more potent than I give it credit for, and just plinking wounds away from key bits actually is far more important. I'm wondering whether a bigger unit of these would be better. The counter is you have a bigger footprint, or do I keep them at unit of 5 and just let them run around? I've still missed having a dragon here with them. A Dragon Lord with them, just running around a flank is really, really good. And it just allows you to pick their fights. If they can heal them, I'll just take Master of Earth for healing, or Forest Embrace to put a forest around with in case of shooting. And then you can start to use the terrain really well. So I think that's something I missed, and it's something that's very much in my mindset. But with the points changes, it's I'll go on to the end, but it's just very complicated. But otherwise, I think these had the best thing. So overall scores, looking at it, top of the thing, the Druid Dragon was great, actually, when you think about it. But no, it was average, but I was rubbish with it because it died game 4. That was my fault. But it did its job by keeping the Blade Dancers alive, because it picks a couple of units, and the unit you want to babysit. So in this list, actually, that's the Blade Dancers. Well, I've got too many, so I've sort of got the Blade Dancers, the Wild Huntsman, and the Avatar. So 3 that I can't really do, especially with the new setup for Druidism. So I need to actually make a choice and go for it. So I need to drop. I can probably do the Avatar. I think you can do the Avatar and one of the Wild Huntsman Blade Dancers, but I don't think you can do both. Other than that, though, it can't really be in that combat. When you look at the Avatar and Dragon combination, I think you want it the other way around, but the Avatar combined with the Blade Dancers actually as an anvil in the center is solid. If those two are together, you are not moving them, especially if the Blade Dancers are in the forest and you've got the Avatar, you are not moving them, because you can sit the dragon within range and just keep buffing and just getting stuff back and doing the combination of a 3+ Aegis or sorry, lost my train of thought. 3+ Aegis or Stone Skin or 4+ Fortitude, and whilst you're doing that, you're just keeping wounds up on the Avatar. And then that's the way to go. Wild Huntsman, on the other hand. So I'm happy with the Avatar. He's in red because he didn't do very well, not because I think he's bad. Everyone knows the Avatar is brilliant, especially when you think about cost. To have what is it? A Lord on Elk is only like 25, 30 points cheaper. Now, yes, it's got 7 strength, 7 attacks, but it doesn't have a Thunderstomp. It has a 4+ ward, but it only has a 4-up save, and it's res 5 and 3 hit points compared to an Avatar with 6 hit points. It's still offensive 6. It's got a crush attack. It's strength 7, AP 4, so it chews through like a 1-up rerollable cowboy. This thing will go through, especially if it's something that's a foot person-y thing, an infantry model. Like, I'm thinking ID here. So I'd be very happy smashing this Avatar into a big unit of ID, I still think. That may be because I don't understand the rules, as happened a lot with different armies. So maybe after Masters Open, I'll come back with a different answer to that one. But I still think it's very good with this. It's also, I still like the wide base. I still think it's a very funky thing that I can just have a wide base in Avatar and just hide the dragon behind with its long, narrow one. But either way, the big unit Dryads, I'm unsure. I'm still unsure about this unit. They can be a great anvil for counter charges, but I just never set up the counter charges effectively. And maybe that was my problem with the Wild Huntsman. I was not looking for this counter charge, but people were just shooting off. And I when they were supporting the Avatar, they were far better. But I just think I either want to use these on a delaying flank to keep the flank of the Blade Dancers protected, or the Avatar protected whilst they go and do the damage, and then I just concentrate on just keeping the models alive and keeping the BSB in range. But it's then how do I develop that width in a game whilst they're quite narrow, and I'm just not sure that's achievable at the moment with this list. So yeah, I've put the heroes in green there. So the small units of Dryads, the Heath Hunters, the Briar Maidens, and the Wizard. The Avatar, yeah, great, but maybe not my style of play. And the Wild Huntsman, I think I've tried them. They're just not quite getting it there. Anyway, so I know I probably should have highlighted the Hunter's Honor, especially now it's 85 points. I think it's got to go. It's just not strong enough, and it doesn't synergize with the 3+ Aegis. That I think is a really strong part of what the Blade Dancers are, but yeah, it's just not the answer, I think. So list options for the Masters Open. So I've got 2 here, and one you can see I've brought back. So I some baseline rules for this list building, because I know they're not optimal, and this is just me. I want to play my dragon model. I like it. I want to play my Tree Father model, and I should probably tell you about that a bit. So my Tree Father model, and I'll bring this out in my next battle report, has got a little owl that comes with the set that goes on top, and I nicknamed it Hooters, because the way I painted this out is really quite good. I was very proud of myself. So it was the first model that I painted and actually tried really, really hard, and it paid off. It took me a while, but so yeah, the Tree Father is called Hooters. So if you hear me say that every now and again, that's why. The dragon is actually, and I'll check my 5s and 20s. Yeah, the dragon is nicknamed after my wife, Anna. So she knows that, but yeah, she's not overly impressed by it. But yeah, no. So those 2 are in the list. I then have. I love the Blade Dancers because they're my other unit. I tried really hard last year. I quite like them as a concept. I think they're very Sylvan Elfy, old Wood Elfy. So I think those 3 are my definites, and along with the Briar Maidens, because also they're quite pretty. So that's the baseline, and then everything else I try and move around it, and that's why I've got this sort of like really clunky setup that suddenly swings one way to another. So option 1 I've gone for is a Forest Prince Dragon General with Sylvan Longbow, Sylvan Blades, Titanic Might on them, and Hail Shot, just to give them a bit of a mobile platform. And Hail Shot is really cool for taking out a lone model, a lone character, or like a lone cowboy that's actually not got that great armor, or a chariot that's low res, especially like if you have a Dread Elf chariot, or you have a War Machine. This thing will just take it off. Yeah, and that's the way it is. You then got the Chieftain Battle Standard Bearer, I've changed it around. So I'll put this on. I've got two Aether Icons and Hero's Heart on Silver Blades. And I've done this for both of them because I want to try it out. The only thing I did think about trying out was Drums of Kemrin, because suddenly no one can flee from the Blade Dancers. Now, as much as I'd like to try it, I don't think that's how I'm going to use them. I use them as get up in their face generally, and you charge me. And I think that's what I want to use them for in both my lists, because I want to use other counter punches, whether it's the dragon or something other. I want to use other units to counter punch from the Blade Dancers, not the Blade Dancers charging out and stuff. So that's going to be why I haven't done that. I've then changed the magic setup because I can't. This is the problem. Even without the hail shot, I cannot fit a Titanic Might Forest Prince in, and I don't like the great weapon. I think it takes away so much benefit of lightning reflexes plus 1 attack. I think 5 strength 7 attacks on top of the dragons are really good. Suddenly you go down to 4 strength 6. It's not that great. It makes a big difference. It doesn't go through parries, so it's only anything like that, and that's quite prevalent. You just any sort of steam tank, anything like that, you're just losing that element, and why not take the avatar after that? So, but maybe I'm being wrong. Maybe I'm being silly, and I should take the Tree Father Ancient and just go down the route. Because with a Chieftain, you cannot take 2 Aether Icons. So if I drop the 2 Aether Icons on the BSB, I could take a Tree Father Ancient and a Dragon Lord, like I preferred and used to, just about. But it means my Blade Dancers are running at MR2. And I just don't like that. It's proven time and time again they are an absolute nightmare at MR2. But I'd be really interested to hear if somebody said in the comments or posted in the forum and said, no, actually, this is something you can take risk on. It's not as essential. But then with the magic setup, I've gone for effectively 3 adepts. So I'd like to take 1 of Druidism, just have Healing Waters and Summer's Growth. And then 1 on Shamanism, because I really like +1 strength on Blade Dancers, just to give them that strength 5 or that res 4. Just means that Pyro is not as effective. But also Shamanism pairs quite well with the big unit of Dryads. Suddenly strength 4 or res 5 Dryads is suddenly, it can be really quite damaging depending on what the opponent is. I then taken 2 Blinding Scrolls just to go after anything that I don't want to, and a Crystal Ball, because I think that's something that's quite interesting. It supports the double Aether Icon a bit more, and it just means that I can look at stopping the spells I really want to, so that time you lose by 2 suddenly changes. So that's really good. You might also be able to stop. I think Crystal Ball's setup, quite a lot of people have talked about how it's actually quite interesting now. It suddenly changes you from stopping 1 spell a turn for definite to maybe stopping 2. You got that first one where you get that +2 to the spell, and then maybe your second one, depending on how lucky your opponent is with their dice. So it adds a different element. You've then got my scoring unit of Dryads and 5 Heath Hunters, but I've also taken the Archers. They've come down in points again, and I don't know, they're just very iconic unit. Let's have a go. Why not? What's wrong with them? They could be really good in this meta, especially if lots of Dread Elves turn up. Or I can think of game 1, they'd have been very useful against Scarabs actually. Like, I know there's difference in points, but actually 17 Archers shooting at 2 Scarabs for 4 turns probably would have opened them up for me because of how far they were from Archers. They also could just do the scoring on the flank. You then got second game against Dread Elves. I could have put them against the crossbows and had a couple of turns shooting before getting close. Game 3, they could have gone after the crossbows or even his shooting, far better as scouting unit. So yeah, I quite like them. I've stuck with the Blade Dancers, but I've gone with Flaming Standard, which I'll probably drop for. I might drop that for an Aether Icon, but the Crystal Ball just means I've got a Flaming Standard in there in case I come up against Trolls, because if I don't, then I'm going to have real issues, I think, just to get past 4+ Fortitude. It can be so annoying at times. Tree Father, just have Hooters back in the army, and then 10 Selvan Sentinels with the Scout, just to give me a Triumphant, and then 7 Briar Maidens. I've gone for a bigger footprint, 1 because I've got the points, and 2 I just think, let's say I have a Blazing Glory, I'll just let the Briar Maidens go off and just do their thing and just Master of Earth and poison it to death over time, whilst my Forest Prince in the Dragon goes off and does his own thing. So yeah, and then option 2 is a Druid Dragon, Wizard Master Druidism, Talisman of the Void. Basically, I still want that 3 Veil tokens to get that free go at Oaken Throne with the Master. I think that's quite important. It's not as I'm not as bothered about it on the other list, but this one I still am. Avatar of Nature, because I think it's still good. Same Chieftain BSB setup, same core setup for the same reasons. But then I've gone for 6 Kestrel Knights. So the big problem with this list is, before, it's very similar to the first one, minus Centaurs get Scout, because I was like, I had the points, but I sacrificed a Blade Dancer to get the Scout in, because I think that's more important. The Kestrels can be trusted to be on their own a little bit for several reasons, I think. One, they are res 4 with a 4-up save. So instantly that res 4 means they're not as susceptible to crossbows and other stuff as the Wild Huntsman. Yes, they don't have an Aegis 6+, but you can work with that. They're hard target 1, and with Banner of Silent Mist, they're automatically soft cover, so they don't need to be babysat by magic. So instantly, those crossbows that were hitting on 4s, and let's say they moved because they're on a flank, you're now hitting on 6s, and then you've got to give an order to do that, but then yeah, there's other things you can do as well with spells and stuff like that. So I think, and then you're at long range, so you're still probably hitting at 6s. If you don't have the order, you're probably hitting on 7s. So even with 20 shots on 7s, you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 hits, well 4 hits let's say, and off there you're going to have 2 wounds go through. Maybe I get lucky and save 1 or something like that, but I lose a cup at 1. The other part is when they come into threat, I can make a charge. I'm not risking as badly as I would be with the Wild Huntsman, because these guys have feigned flight. So I've used them before in the center, where I've put them in the center, they failed a charge, or I've put them in the center to draw people in, and then I've ran behind the Blade Dancers, one then the Blade Dancers or something else countercharged into them. So I think they can enable you. Kestrel Knights can give you something to trap people with. I've then gone for the 12 Blade Dancers. I've not got a Flaming Standard, which could be my risk, and I've taken it off the Scout. Is that a mistake? Maybe, but then I think I've got to have to rely on the Avatar just to punch into something like that and go deal with it over time and just grind it down and hope it works. That's the main thing with that. And then I've got 9 Sentinels with Scout just to have that again, and then 5 Briarmain as a champion. If I'm honest, what I'm happy about both these lists is I've got something reliable on the flank that flies and has a punch. And I think then it just depends about which army I'm facing. I think I'm tempted to choose option 1 because I'm not so reliant on Druidism. My magic setup has a bit more punch to it. I can still take Master of Earth on the Briar Maidens. I've still got Swarm of Insects, so I've got 2 shooting spells. I can take Break the Spirit to have a bit of fun. I could do Truth of Time just to get the dragon in. I could have Forest Embrace to keep it going. To be honest, I'll take Forest Embrace and Master of Earth with this one. I've still got Healing Waters and stuff like that. I'd have plus on Strength or Res, so I've got a little bit more going for me. And then you couple that with a bit more shooting and stuff like that. I've just tempted with that. And then also in the counter phase, I can ruin people's magic phase. 2 Binding Scrolls. So even with the 2 archers now, your big threats there are Totemic Summon and what are they called? Wrath of God. Well, with that, I'm probably stopping your Wrath of God for 2 turns, or your Totemic Summons for 2 turns. So I'm happy to risk it, and even then, I might be able to stop something else through and take risk on certain terms. So, and maybe I can get my dragon into your bunker and start chopping up your mage with it. I'd say one of the things to question is, yeah, no, I quite like this list. I like both lists, but I said that about the last one as well. And look what happened there. But that could be just me being a bad player. With the other list, I've still got this punchy 6 Kestrel Knights that can be left on their own, whilst I've still got an Avatar of Nature that can go down people's throats. The only thing is, if he fails, that's 800 points gone. whilst in the tree father it's only 455. So if it's against a steam tank, I can still use the crash attack with the tree father. So I'm not, or something like that. So I'm not as concerned about it. The only thing is, Tree Father is only 5 wounds, and that 6 hit point does make a lot of difference. So yeah, It's also my magic is a lot more vulnerable with the first list, because you get into whether they're with this with the Centaurs account, they're going to probably be in the archers. Centaurs may get put back into a different position to give them some options, but most of my magic is tucked up in a very, very big unit that's you're looking at in excess of 600, like 900 and something things. The other part is my general with his leadership is going to be on a flank. So I must be honest, I am leaning to option 2, though I think option 1 still has benefits, but I'll be honest, I'm leaning to option 2, but I'd be very willing to listen to some people's opinions. But yeah. No, the other thing I was thinking about was being a bit cheeky, dropping Scout on the Centaurs and choosing Banner of Deception on the Kestrel Knights, because then suddenly I've got a 12-inch Vanguard, 18-inch move on a unit that no one knows where is going to be. So I'd be interested in people's thoughts of that. But yeah, I haven't put a hobby corner at the moment, but I'm looking at 6 Kestrel Knights that I'm touching up, just giving them some highlights in preparation for what I eventually go for. We don't know yet, but otherwise, hope you're all having a very good new year. If you're going to the Masters, look forward to seeing you there. If not, hope you manage the coverage. There's some great coverage going on. I recommend having a look at the tournament forum with the Masters UK stuff. Even if you're not in the UK, lots of people had a look at it last year. Between Proxy Table Gaming and Paired Weapon Podcast, they were fantastic all the way through. The Masters Committee have organised themselves really well, and I know it was quite a lot of fun, and it created a lot of hype to the point where we had our next UB tournament straight after Masters. 80 people signed up for the Scottish Championships on UB. I mean, it's insane, and it kept the hype going for quite a while. So I'm really looking forward to that again this year. And this is the first Masters, but I'll be going to the Masters Open. Just for clarification, I am nowhere near that standard, but I'll be going to the Masters Open. But it'd be great being there and watching the top players battle it out. No, so thank you very much. It's AAA Wargaming. Have a good one.